Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Israel is struggling to destroy Hamas, but it's destroying Gaza. Netanyahu's mission: destroy Hamas, bring hostages home, and get re-elected. Amid Gaza war and Red Sea attacks, Yemen's Houthis refuse to back down. Reversing earlier decision, judge allows removal of Confederate memorial at Arlington Cemetery. Senate OK's 11 four-star nominees, ending ongoing nomination fight. Israel is struggling to destroy Hamas, but it's destroying Gaza. Washington Post. Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, has said that Israel intends to take over the entire Gaza Strip and change the course of history. However, Israel seems to be facing an entrenched Hamas that is proving difficult to defeat. Despite waging an intense military campaign, Israel has only neutralized a fraction of Hamas's armed strength, while in the process, it has wreaked havoc on the territory, displaced most of the population, and triggered a humanitarian disaster. Gaza's hospitals are on the brink of collapse, and there are concerns about the prospect of an exodus of refugees into Egypt. Hamas, while bruised, has not been defeated. Even a near-total battlefield victory would not extinguish the group, which is deeply rooted in Palestinian society and positions itself as the standard-bearer of resistance to Israeli occupation. Moreover, Israel's military campaign may fuel more militancy and support for armed resistance among Palestinians. The Israeli political establishment, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has used chilling language, with Netanyahu discussing thinning Gaza's population. Middle East historian Jean-Pierre Filliou argues that behind Israel's stated desire for retaliation lies the desire to eliminate not just Hamas but the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu's mission: destroy Hamas, bring hostages home, and get re-elected. CNN. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's war aims in Gaza, including the destruction of Hamas and freeing hostages, are being overshadowed by his desire to be re-elected, according to CNN. Netanyahu has started to criticize the Oslo Accords, a series of pacts between Israel and the Palestinians that laid the groundwork for discussions on a potential Palestinian state. Bibi Netanyahu needs to find a new raison d'etre to remain relevant. So he's going back to the Oslo process, said Yohanan Plesner, president of the Israel Democracy Institute. Amid Gaza war and Red Sea attacks, Yemen's Houthis refuse to back down. New York Times. The Houthi militia in Yemen has dismissed a US-led international maritime task force to confront its attacks on ships in the Red Sea as a lost cause. The Houthis consider their hijackings, missile, and drone launches at commercial ships as a righteous battle to force Israel to end its siege on Gaza. Western militaries had already spent weeks attempting to deter the Houthis, so the task force is viewed as nothing new by the group. The Houthis have warned that if the US directly attacked Yemen, it could turn the war in Gaza into an international conflagration. Reversing earlier decision, judge allows removal of Confederate memorial at Arlington Cemetery. Yahoo! A federal judge has given the Arlington National Cemetery the go-ahead to remove a century-old Confederate memorial 1 day after blocking the removal over claims that gravesites were disturbed, per the Associated Press. U.S. District Judge Rossi Alston said he issued the temporary injunction after receiving an urgent phone call from the memorial supporters saying that gravesites adjacent to the memorial were being desecrated as contractors began work to remove the memorial. He said he toured the site before Tuesday's hearing and saw the site being treated respectfully. "I saw no desecration of any graves," Alston said. "The grass wasn't even disturbed." Senate OK's 11 four-star nominees, ending ongoing nomination fight. Yahoo! Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville has lifted his hold on 11 senior military nominees that had been stalled for months. Previously, Tuberville had held up over 400 nominees due to his objections to military abortion access policies. The individuals confirmed include heads of combatant commands and the second-ranking official for 4 of the 5 military services. Tuberville had threatened to keep his hold on the 11 four-star nominees, but he relented amid additional pressure from Democratic and Republican leaders. Coups, catastrophes, and great power competition. Foreign policy. Africa has experienced a difficult and turbulent year, with severe debt, global inflation, and extreme weather events. The continent has seen 8 successful coups since 2020, creating a so-called junta belt from Guinea to Sudan. While geopolitical competition between the US, Russia, and China has been seen as a factor in these coups, the overriding driver seems to be popular frustration with economic woes and discontent with governing authorities. Nigeria, for example, has seen disgruntlement against a flawed election and the highest food inflation rate in 2 decades, leading to an exodus of educated Nigerians and economic problems. The United States has increased its engagement in Africa this year, with the vice president visiting the continent in March. However, a promised visit by President Joe Biden failed to materialize. As African leaders look for support elsewhere, particularly in the Middle East, it is likely that the relationship between the US and African nations will decline further. Meanwhile, the death of mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin has not dislodged the Wagner Group from African countries, as the use of military contractors is widespread in Africa and Wagner has taken advantage of political circumstances. The Sahel continues to be volatile, with military takeovers enjoying popular support from an African public fed up with staged elections, economic mismanagement, and violent state repression. Other major stories in Africa this year include South Africa's confusion over its stance on Russia and its support for a multipolar world order, the UAE's role in Sudan's civil war, Egypt's border with Gaza, and concerns over a potential return to war between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Algeria has become Europe's second biggest natural gas supplier, after Norway, and has sought a multi-alignment approach by keeping close ties with the US, Russia, and China. The country has ambitions to join the BRICS nations but was not chosen to join this year due to its smaller economic footprint compared to other members. Taiwan's ability to defend against China invasion thrown into question. Bloomberg. Taiwan is facing challenges in preparing for a potential conflict with China, with doubts being raised about its ability to deter or resist an invasion. Concerns have been raised about Taiwan's military size, which has shrunk in recent years, and its level of readiness. The country also faces a backlog in U.S. arms sales, including fighter jets and tanks. Analysts question Taiwan's modernization decisions and the sufficiency of its training, while some doubt the public's willingness to defend the island. However, Taiwan's mountainous terrain and limited stretches of coastline make it difficult for an invading force to establish a beachhead. Taiwan's government is actively exploring ways to strengthen its defenses, including in civil, military, and infrastructure areas. It is engaging with the US to discuss possibilities and adjustments, such as producing drones. However, there is a concern that Taiwan may capitulate or seek rapprochement if attacked by China, particularly if the US is not visibly committed. The island's citizens are relatively affluent and may be less aware of the threat of conflict. Taiwan's political landscape is also a factor, with some presidential candidates more inclined to engage with China than others. Running short on Ukraine air defenses, US looks to Japan. Washington Post. Japan is expected to change its policy to enable it to export a number of Patriot missiles to the United States. These missiles will then be sent to Ukraine, which is in urgent need of air defense systems as it prepares for Russian airstrikes this winter. The change in policy will meet a key request by the Biden administration, and Japan is expected to announce the change as early as this week, with the cabinet considering sending dozens of missiles to the U.S. to replenish its stocks earmarked for Japan and the Indo-Pacific. The munitions in question are PAC-2 and PAC-3 interceptors, with PAC-3 interceptors costing around $4 million apiece. Ukraine claims to have used the Patriot system to shoot down Russian ballistic missiles. Tragedy all around, services announced for deputy killed in double fatal crash. Yahoo! Funeral services have been announced for Preble County Sheriff's Deputy Joshua Hamilton, who died in a fatal crash on Monday. The visitation will be held on Friday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., with funeral services at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Hamilton had been with the Preble County Sheriff's Office since May 2022 and was the first deputy to die in the line of duty in Preble County. He served in the U.S. Navy from 2009 to 2015 and was a naval reservist from 2015 to 2023. The crash is under investigation by the Ohio State Highway Patrol. North Korea and Russia clash with US, South Korea and allies over Pyongyang's latest missile launch. Associated Press. The US, South Korea and their allies have clashed with Russia and North Korea at the United Nations Security Council over Pyongyang's latest intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, launch. The US and its allies condemned North Korea's actions, which violated multiple Security Council resolutions and threatened the peace and stability of its neighbors and the international community. However, North Korean Ambassador Kim Song claimed that the US and South Korea had been responsible for escalating the situation on the Korean peninsula, and that North Korea had a legitimate right to self-defense. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Today, we've covered a range of topics, from the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas to the challenges facing Taiwan in defending against a potential invasion from China. Let's dive into some deeper analysis. Starting with the situation in Israel and Gaza, it's clear that Israel's objective of destroying Hamas is proving to be a difficult task. Despite their intense military campaign, they have only made a dent in Hamas's armed strength while causing immense damage to the territory and triggering a humanitarian crisis. The entrenched nature of Hamas in Palestinian society and their positioning as the resistance against Israeli occupation means that even a total victory on the battlefield would not eliminate the group. In fact, it may only fuel more militancy and support for armed resistance among Palestinians. The Israeli political establishment's use of chilling language, such as discussing thinning Gaza's population, raises concerns about their true intentions and the future of Gaza itself. Moving on to Yemen, the Houthi militia's dismissal of the US-led International Maritime Task Force highlights their determination to continue their attacks on ships in the Red Sea. They see these attacks as a means of pressuring Israel to end its siege on Gaza. Despite Western attempts to deter the Houthis, their defiance suggests that the situation in Yemen and Gaza could escalate into an international conflagration if the US directly attacks Yemen. In the United States, we've seen a federal judge allowing the removal of a century-old Confederate memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. This decision comes after initial claims of gravesites being disturbed were debunked. It's a small victory in the ongoing battle to address the legacy of Confederate symbols and promote inclusivity and equality in the country. Shifting to Africa, the continent has experienced a turbulent year, with severe debt, global inflation, and extreme weather events. Coups have become a common occurrence, driven by popular frustration with economic woes and discontent with governing authorities. Geopolitical competition between the US, Russia, and China may play a role, but the primary driver is internal discontent. As African leaders look for support elsewhere, the relationship between the US and African nations may decline further. The use of military contractors, like the Wagner Group, continues to be prevalent in Africa, taking advantage of political circumstances and contributing to instability. In Taiwan, doubts are being raised about its ability to defend against a potential invasion from China. Concerns about the shrinking military size, readiness, and backlog in U.S. arms sales have cast a shadow over Taiwan's defense capabilities. While the government is actively exploring ways to strengthen its defenses, there is a concern that Taiwan may capitulate or seek rapprochement if attacked, particularly if the U.S. is not visibly committed. The public's awareness of the threat of conflict, as well as the political landscape, will play a crucial role in Taiwan's ability to deter or resist an invasion. Switching gears to Ukraine, Japan is expected to change its policy to allow the export of Patriot missiles to the United States, which will then be sent to Ukraine. This move comes as Ukraine urgently requires air defense systems to prepare for potential Russian airstrikes. The change in policy meets a key request by the Biden administration and highlights international efforts to support Ukraine in its defense against Russian aggression. Finally, tensions have risen between the US, South Korea, and their allies with Russia and North Korea over Pyongyang's latest missile launch. The US and its allies condemn North Korea's actions, citing violations of Security Council resolutions and threats to peace and stability. However, North Korea claims that the US and South Korea are responsible for escalating the situation and asserts its right to self-defense. That wraps up today's news analysis. Remember, these are complex issues with no easy solutions. I invite you all to share your thoughts and questions. What do you make of the ongoing conflicts in Israel and Taiwan? How can the international community effectively address these challenges? Let's engage in a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.